be starting. Oh yeah, you have it first. Okay.
Okay.
So tell us your name and
Okay, I'm Ezekiel.
Ezekiel.
I'm from Ezekiel.
Oh.
Looking at the presentation, you can see that the central theme here is to green Africa, bringing it back to its state, how it was. In the moment that the lady was doing that, is it applicable just as she did? Is it applicable today? It's a question.
Okay. Your question is noted. Sure. You receive a response soon. Any more? Yeah. Kofi or something.
Thank you. From the movie, I observed that even though the people, how do you call it, won their independence and could govern themselves, yet the colonial administration, their deeds were so steep, even in the elected governments that the people had for themselves. So it looks like even though Kenya was independent, yet the colonial administration was still practiced. What the colonial administration wanted was still practiced. In that, even the environment, the people no longer see the need to protect their environment, but to continue the degradation that the colonial administration started. So, independent nations must really consider what independence they have. When the woman mentioned that the ancestors or their fathers have shed blood for the land and they are willing to do so to protect the environment now, it looks like we feel we are independent, and things like the environment, our tadpoles, our river bodies, our trees are not important to us because they are not important to the government, but it must be important to us members before it can be important to the government.
Yeah, go.
I'm always about the cultural aspect of it, where the religion comes into play, where they were told that, let me just, what is called like sacrificing the earth for paradise. It's just as like sacrificing the real thing, the substance for a shadow. Like the Christian, this thing is like forces the people to think that like there's a place for them in heaven, there's a place for them in paradise. So you just don't have to like care about like protecting your environment, but you can like anything that happens here, it's not your problem. Like there's a spiritual bank for you that you reap in the future. And then to my senior man's point was like, whenever this cultural distance is like, it's so a seed in you that you will not know that like this seed is in you, that you are practicing whatever the colonial master has sown in you. And you end up doing things thinking that you are using your head to do it, but not knowing you were doing his, or you are doing his way of life that he has taught you. Let's come back. Thank you very much.
I mean, that's about received wisdoms during the colonial period that continued even after independence was regained, right? Yeah. Okay, so your name and
I'm Seifu Uhuru, known as Power. I was here yesterday, but from what I watched from this film, and in response to what the brother was speaking of, is it applicable to do right now? The model can be shown across Africa, pretty much countrywide, that it will work. Because the reason that we're in such a begging position right now is because our farmers have been made to abandon the traditions and the farmlands, just like was illustrated on the film. They have gone away from planting crops that they fed their families for generation after generation after generation. They put those practices down to run to these new cities, these Europeanized cities with Europeanized values. So nobody's left to tend to the staple crops. We're going for cash crops. And it's the same thing that's perpetrated wherever we find ourselves in either neo-colonial mindset or in an active environment of being enslaved, mental enslavement. Even with us in the States, cotton was king, especially where we were from, the southern places, and cotton is still king. in those places right now, and people have abandoned, even in the United States, how people might like to put the United States on this pedestal like it's some grand place. It is actually the pit of hell, because when you're there, you cannot go. For me to plant a tree, I would have to bust up about 12 to 15 feet of concrete all around me just to plant one tree. And even I go out into my backyard and try to plant one in my backyard, the soil is so porous and enriched, it won't nothing grow there. So when I come here and I see the abandonment of the farmland, and we have to, everybody's conglomerating in the cities, it's very much applicable. That's the only way that we're gonna survive at this point, because we're coming home in numbers, and we need to acquire the green thumb from our brothers and sisters. We need to learn everything that this sister's talking about to implement it for our collective survival, not just us or our native brothers and sisters, for our collective survival as an African continent.
Thank you.
Very quickly, if we can recognize Dr. Osman and Dr. Na from the Institute.
Okay. So we have some of our fellows here. Dr. Osman Alassane, senior fellow here in the Institute, and Dr. Peter Na is also a fellow. And I think today we have the largest presence of our fellows, of course. Dr. Kambon himself, and I hope that from tomorrow we get the numbers rising. Yeah, and Dr. Osman and Dr. Peter Na are also environmental experts. So I'm sure before the interactive session is over, we'll share some insights with us. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. Your name and then. Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay. This is the Black History Month, right? And it's unfortunate today to actually watch Wangari retire for the first time. I'm Kenyan, so it was kind of intriguing because I haven't watched it in Kenya, but I'm now watching it in Ghana, which is interesting. And it's also kind of questionable. Okay, what I would say about the clip is that if you have been following recent news in Kenya, you would know that we are facing drought at the moment. That is a clear indication that, in some extent, what Wangari was doing is not becoming fruitful. Because if it was becoming fruitful, they would not be discussing drought in 2017. Kenya, with multi-party democracy, something like that, it would mean that we are a lot of people and we are able to make decisions because we have been given a free mind to make that decision. We are no longer in the previous Moi regime, for that matter. Unfortunately, we cannot discuss environment in Kenya without putting politics in it, without putting tribalism in it. Kenya is a developing country, which is good, and based on the clip, we are doing really good in terms of the environment. People are coming out strong, people are coming out talking about the environment in good ways. But there is one thing you cannot separate: environment and politics and tribalism, just like what Wangari was saying. Because currently there is a lot of land grabbing. And like she said, you have to find the root cause of it. And normally I say the problem started with our founding father, Jomo Kenyatta. I'm not ashamed to say that, because if he had started it well by saying, okay, fine, I've been given all the land, let me give it to the people to develop it, it would have been a different story. But right now we're in a society where land in Kenya is owned by a particular group of people, which is stalling the actual thing that Wangari wanted to do for the country, or what she envisioned the country to be growing in a beautiful, and it's not possible to do it when a group of people own the environment. So what I think at the end of it, we should also try to put an education system for our children to understand that education is not about passing your exams. It's about understanding your environment. Environment does not basically mean the trees, no. It means understanding your culture, it means understanding your religion, it means understanding your politics, it means understanding a lot of things around you. We need to teach our children to understand the difference between, okay, it's good to have this kind of thing that was brought by the white people, but you need to put a stop at it here. Because when it go beyond here, it's not helping us the way it's supposed to help us. Like she said, the only way to burn down somebody is to burn down his or her culture. You do it perfectly by doing that. But if you allow the children to understand their culture and where the culture is coming from, it is from this that we are going to bring up citizens that are able to appreciate the environment, children that are able to appreciate politics and to understand their political environment. That's why sometimes I normally say if I would find a school where they only teach children philosophy, I'd go for that. Because philosophy does not tie you to a particular thing. Philosophy allows you to think beyond one particular thing. That's all I have to say.
So we have a Wangari in the making. Wangari Jr.
Yeah,
in the making.
the resemblance is also really striking. All right, Dr. Osman.
Well, thank you. I have some slight cold, so my voice is not as shriek as it should be. But it's important to watch things like this movie because for many of us, especially with rural backgrounds, we know the very significance of forests, the very significance of ecosystems. And even though Kenya might have been a settler place, attracting some kind of more rape of the environment, natural environment than Ghana, our small history also tells us that we have gone through some time where the environment has not been utilized well. For example, one big difference between Kenya and Ghana is that Ghana, 80% of our lands is owned by customary ownership. And the customary ownership can either be at the highest resolution where the ethnic group identified to be within that place owns it, in which case in the south it will be the stool and in the north it will be the skin. Or in times of conquest or early settlement, as some of the historical means by which you claimed land, you can have families that own land. So you could have said that unlike places where governments own public land, we have customary systems owning the land. But our forests haven't gone any better. Our water resources haven't gone any better. And I'm sure as for Ghana, we first will point a finger to mining. Everybody knows what mining does to the environment. But we also know that even as I said, it's customary. Over the years, because we have shifted from looking at how communal ownership can give us sustainable, livelihoods from the environment, to where we have decided to alienate land on individual basis. And we have tried also, at some point in time it was cotton, at some point in time it was rice. And what you do then is that the environment is destroyed, you introduce a monoculture. We haven't gone far in it. But Ghana has experienced a green revolution in the 70s. Simply put, the first time that you had rice and white maize overtaking traditional sorghum, millet, and others. Today we are not any good rice growing people, but we have abandoned the culture where we used to be growing, some paddy, some sorghum, some millet. And even as our tastes have transformed and we are taking wholesale rice today, it is either from the US or it's from Thailand or from Vietnam, I mean, God knows where, to such an extent that you wonder why we have a very fruitful and fertile environment, and yet we are dependent on rice from other places. And the import bill is so huge, and it distorts everything, but above all, it's destroyed the culture already. So for some of us, we take insights in, anything that tries to educate us on the fact that the natural environment, and especially those of us that have good ones, we are in the tropics, is good because it's far better than desert land or something. We need to appreciate that we can make more sustainable gains by making sure that we live in harmony with the environment. You know, and today if you look at the global avenue where we have sustainable development goals, difficult for us to meet because it's a wrong starter. I mean, how would you get sustainable development when your environment is no longer sustainable? When governance systems are not transparent enough and they would leverage the kind of land resources that you have, you know, for other short-term production gains, which makes it in such a way that the people can no longer be able to survive on it as they used to do. So for me, looking at Ghana's problems with respect to how much forest land is left, looking at the mining from both formal and informal sectors, destroying the environment, and most especially destroying water. It is very sad because we live in environments where central governments are yet to make impact on grassroots communities, many of them. Meantime, those communities have to survive. And that's why it is sad if we are not giving them their fair share of the national cake. And yet we are promoting the destruction of their environment. You know, so it gives food for thought that if we actually want sustainable development in the real sense, we need to take care of our environment, because that is what would give us sustenance over longer periods, not destroy it in terms of timber or grow monocrops or build houses, and then in no time we want to come back and have sustenance from it. So it's very important to see how the environment is about the central thing that makes our own livelihood and comfort possible on earth, whether it's Ghana, it's Nigeria, or even Congo DR, or it's in Kenya. So it's good that I was part of this.
Dr. Na, any?
Well, thank you. Well, I think most things have been said already by Alassane and Gigi. Yeah, she's such as my wife, so I share most of the things she said. Yeah. So, yeah, it's crucial, you know, how Maathai created the linkage between environment and culture. So, I would even say it's not only ecosystem, but cultural system. And it behoves on us to actually question our current systems of conservation, where we are told that, okay, you plant big trees on a large-scale plantations, and we say that politicians, governments tell us that this is sustainability. But how is it shaping our culture? You know, how are people's lives being affected by, like Dr. Lassan said, you know, monoculture? We say sustainability. How are people's food systems, you know, accessibility to land affected? And yet we say that this is sustainability. So I find it very important that this linkage has been created, and that's something we all have to imbibe and actually interrogate or question current approaches to sustainability and see how we have been affected. Yeah, culture is very important linkage with the environment.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Campbell.
So I'll say something small.
And we'll trade places.
Does anyone know the oldest book in the history of humanity? The oldest book written by any human being, surviving text? People are paying attention. Yesterday we didn't get very many hands, so now the hands are much better. In that book, there's a line that I always share with people, and that I shared yesterday, and it's still relevant today. And well, first, does anyone know where that book comes from? Kemet, which is land of the black people, which is where we still are. That's Abibi Mine. That's Ile Adulawa, whichever language we say, we're on this same land. So that's in Africa. Now, in the book it says, one who listens to his belly belongs to the enemy. One who listens to his belly belongs to the enemy. And basically it's talking about created tastes and desires There's another documentary that's not for this week, but it's called The Great African Scandal. And it talks about how in the 80s, during Rollins Chain times, how they created a taste for this white rice. And then once you get a taste for it, now you will listen to those people. There's a proverb in Tree, and it translates to, if you eat in 30 different houses, you can't say the things you want to say, basically. You understand? Because you have to make sure you're on good terms with this person, and with that person, and with this person. So even if you want to take a stand, you know, you have to compromise your stand. And I think that that's what basically we're dealing with, and what Dr. Osman said and what Dr. Na said. I was fortunate to grow up in a very rural setting in the woods. People think if it's the U.S., it's all concrete. But I grew up in a situation where my parents, they built their own log cabin. My mother and my father out there with axes and chainsaws, and they built their own cabin out of wood. We grew our own food. We dug our own wells for our own water source and all these types of things. So I grew up, as Wangari Maathai was talking about this, I was picturing the pond and the big tree. We have a big tree that we call. So those types of things. And to the brother's question in terms of, you know, could it be done? As I was sitting there, there's a brother who does sustainable seeds. We have, I mentioned, an African-centered homeschool. And what he does is he shows us how to make pots out of newspapers. So you fold up the newspaper, and then you have a pot. And then you put the soil in. So I was seeing the plastic, and I was thinking about Rwanda, where they've outlawed this plastic. And I was saying this is sustainable. The paper originally comes from trees. So after people are reading it, what are they going to do with it? You know, we'll see it in, you know, plantain wrapped in it. But this was a brilliant idea of making this into a pot. You plant it, it biodegrades, and it goes right back into the soil, and then it gives the nourishment to the tree or to whatever it was. I was blessed to grow up with millet. I have my own daughter. We have just a small plot of land in front of our house. This is talking about, you know, what can we do on even a small scale, where we planted plantain and we give it to our neighbors when it comes. We, you know, distribute it there. You know, just small things, tomatoes, you know, peppers, you know, onions, things like this. So even though we're in Hacho, we have, you know, a place where we can, you know, do those types of things. So I think for each and every one of us, we can just see a strip of land close to us and say, how can we inculcate that? Because I'm doing that so my daughter will have a different view, a different connection to the land and things of that nature. So everyone look at yourselves and say, you know, yeah, that's great. How can I, you know, implement something even on a small scale for myself? All right. Thank you.
And then the question is asked whether it can be applicable in our moment. Yeah, really it can be applicable. Because I came to see this program when I came around selecting some mahogany seeds from the bigger mahogany trees we have here. And I saw the barn, I just walked in and I realized this program was going. For the last month, I came for some seeds, mahogany seeds.
Beautiful.
Yes. About 100 of them. Wow. And within a short while, they are growing so great. Now, my fear is when I should have this in larger quantity, how am I going to get them back or get them on the ground? And then the land, how is it going to be acquired? Is there not going to be these political powers, these constraints, these clauses in the attendance of the land and all? It has been my mind and I've been thinking about it, but I think this forum is a good ground for me to bring out this thing. So if there's any solution, I can think about it. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Future, and I want to answer what the brother was just saying about the mahogany trees. I think the best thing to do now is to start like a list of people. You can take up people's names that would be interested in acquiring these trees. We just got land. We would be interested in doing so. We would be we would practice our activism into recruiting people to actually intake with those trees, and all of us plant these trees. Just like the fig tree is very important, these trees, mahogany trees, these are our best trees. We need our ancient grains. I am herbalist, my husband also. We want to come with our traditional herbs and grains. We want to take part in these ancient grains, not the prototypes that have been made from them. And we want to use them. We want to push them back into the community. When we go to the market, we ask for everything local. People look at us like we're crazy. But we ask, where's the local one? Where's the local sugar? Where's the local salt? Where is the local soap? Brown, give me the local rice. Where is the millet? Where can I find spelts? Can you tell me where I can find sorghum? Where can I find these grains? Because I know they're here somewhere. But we need access to these things, and it's commendable that you have already started this, which is truly the same thing that she was doing. You started a revolution just from the seeds that you have been capturing and creating these trees, and you have people. It's good, like you said, we have these type of forums, because now all of us can spread the word. I know a brother that has mahogany trees. He's going to be interested. Would you be interested in getting one, and so on and so forth? So I commend you, and good job, brother. Yes.
All right, I just want to just a chip on this. I think quite a number of us would be interested. Like we also learned from here, and excuse me to say this, but when these matters are concerned, you can appreciate the level of ignorance, even at higher levels, places where, because you expect people at some level to know about these things, and yet they know nothing. So another way also is, in addition to absorbing this and getting people, you likely to also get others appreciate the fact that, this could be done. There are many who think that maybe a road be 100 times burdensome to do this, and that would be opening up to them. And then that is how I think the message goes around.
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for your thoughts so far. Lots of food for thought to take away for me today. I think somebody asked earlier whether the ideas in the video were practicable for us here in Ghana, and I definitely feel so. As somebody else went on to say, I cannot think of any problem in Ghana specifically, or in any black African country, where what Wangari did cannot be practiced. After what she did, she educated the people with emphasis on women, which is always really important because of women's special connection to nature and preserving what's around them, and letting people know what's at risk and what's at stake. As it's just been pointed out, we think people know things and sometimes they don't. So by rights, videos like this should be being played in our marketplaces, in our villages, with either somebody's translating, explaining certain things that's going on, for people to realize that, okay, this is Kenya back in the 70s, but actually this is Ghana in 2017. There's no problem whether it's providing employment for ourselves, whether it's the power issues we have, whether it's just cleaning up our environment, that the same playbook that Wangari set out, Maathai set out, can't be applied to the same thing. And then secondly, a kind of a small point, at one point, when she was trying to stop the deforestation, she wrote letters to the British government, which I was like, oh no, because that's how it always gets started. Right. But what I think she did cleverly, first of all, was that in her letters and in her explanation to the documentary makers, was that she pointed out the British culpability in what was happening in Kenya, first of all, and she played it nicely as a political gambit, whereby she was embarrassing the Kenyan political powers by bringing in, kind of like, if you want to unfortunately look at it like kind of an older brother.
It might be comparable to perhaps what Haile Selassie did when he was, depending on your part of your side of the debate, when he brought in the British to help remove the Italians from his country as well. So it's one of those things that when we have to do that, because unfortunately Africans do bad things to Africans, we do wickedness to ourselves. But one thing history has taught us is whenever we go to Europe, because they seem to be benign, what they will come with is going to be 5 times, if not 100 times worse than what we're doing to ourselves. So what she did there was make sure that in appearing to or actually requesting help, it was very political, and she kept it very smart and clever that way, so that it wasn't a complete running into their arms, as Malcolm X would call it, running from the wolf to the fox. It's the other way around, but yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Very quickly.
Okay. Dr. Kanito.
Okay, Doctor.
Wow, I'm just always loving the films that I get to see here. I'm always on the path to look at what's applicable, what we can do, what's doable. We can have great conversations and be moved and touched and then go home and then that's that. So as a step in that direction, one of the things I noticed when you were talking about what would happen and are they going to try to block me, how might be the response, you know, as this woman starts out with this incredible, phenomenal idea, she meets with incredible adversity and hostility. And that's just a reality we have to embrace. You know, if you really want to see some kind of meaningful change, and if you're not ready for it, it's okay. You can, I mean, pain hurts. It hurts to get tortured. It's just real. It hurts. You know, someone's doing things to you. You know, it's not only humiliating, but it's physically very painful. And so, this woman was up for that. And that's not to say you'll go through the exact same thing, but the point of it is, I think that we really do have to be willing to pay the cost for these incredible, amazing ideas, and not sort of convince ourselves to think that it's a great idea, so therefore it must be great times to make it happen. It may not. And this woman she was doing what she was doing for a little while before some good came about, and I'm sure she's still getting flack. But one of the things I thought about, yesterday I posted some videos in a group that I'm in, a wellness WhatsApp group, and thank you. And what it was about was families, companies, and cities that are becoming zero waste. And I think about this university, and I think to myself, you know, what if some professors decided to task their students as an assignment to begin to promote infomercials throughout the campus, billboard plaques, what have you, about zero waste, about what composting does and how it enriches the soil. I throw compost outside my door, literally outside my door. And so there's like garlic growing that I did not plant. I just threw it because I was, you know, finished chopping it, and there's literally garlic growing. And there's several little local mango trees growing outside my door. I don't even know how they're gonna mature because they're just like all up in this little space. And then I had a space about 3 times the size of this tabletop, when you talk about the small space that you guys had with you and your family right now, where I was growing the peppers, the bright green peppers that turn orange and red if you leave one under long enough. And I was just throwing compost, and sometimes it's just the whole pineapple went bad. I'm gonna just throw the whole pineapple, I don't care. But what was happening was that the soil was becoming so enriched, all the stuff that I was throwing out the door was just coming up. So like my wash lady would come over and be like, oh, garlic, and she would pick garlic and people would go over and harvest in just this small space. And because of the composting, I was literally not able to, in a size 3 times the size of this table, I could not handle the produce myself coming out of it. Because it was so robust, and the fruit from the plant was so pretty. And so I just was giving it, like you guys, I was just giving it to people because it was just too much. So it makes me wonder what could happen if one woman could do that. What would one classroom look like doing that on this campus, putting out infomercials and flyers and handbills and doing plays and all kinds of things. Maybe in the theater department or the film department, they can make video clips and air them on television about how to do this so that people can become educated, so that they can see. Because we can't always attribute nefarious intentions to people who don't know. Sometimes they just don't know because they just don't know. And it's not because they're corrupt and don't want to know. Sometimes they just don't want to know. And it just makes me wonder what can happen. You know, there's tons and tons of trees on this campus, thankfully. And we have a nursery that's here, thankfully. There's even a little spot that I've seen where they sell the local organic produce here. Yes. And so all of those things are great, but who knows about it? And how is that being promoted? So I think that's one of my takeaways from here, is to see whether or not a classroom here could take on this whole thing of zero waste, composting, and then planting trees. I saw the man who stopped the desert last year, and I was like, ooh. So I just started planting trees. I didn't know. And then somebody said something about getting some land. I was like, oops, were we supposed to own land? I was just planting trees on somebody's property. I don't know what's going on. So there's all these trees that I've been planting, and even after I'm eating the baobab fruit, I'm just taking the seeds by the handful and just throwing them out in my village. So these are just, like you said, Dr. Cambone, just little small, simple things that we can do. But I'm really hoping, as a result of this film, that a classroom will take on the project. And then we can see what a classroom can do if one woman can do what she did. So.
I think that's for those of us in African studies who have classrooms full of people.
My name is Tayo. I'm a French tutor and I coach basketball as well. Yes, just some of my notes from the documentary. I came across Wangari Maathai's book Unbowed about environmental conservation and protection a few years ago, and I was aware when she won the Nobel Prize. Did some research on her work, and really she's a big figure across the continent for environmental rights and responsibilities. Yes, I heard during the clip she said, you know, to recapture the values of our culture, and thus enabling us to claim the environment, and this gives us ownership of our resources, and we can thrive and prosper from what rightfully belongs to us. I think we saw that she's the first woman in East Africa to win, to earn a PhD degree. You know, it's a big inspiration to younger women, so those that are here in university and those in secondary schools and wanting to get enter institutions of higher learning. Yes, I wanted to take off from Sister Carnita's point. She mentioned classroom. I think this film festival, what we're doing here, enlightening students and teachers alike on issues. We've spoken on environment and also civic education. They're concerned our communities and each and every one of us as individuals, but just on the power and effectiveness of the medium film to reach out to a larger audience, especially masses, people out there. The classroom, what she mentioned about ecology, recycling, but in terms of educating our society, going to community centers, some schools possibly, or viewing arenas where where young people can come and learn from such films as we're watching here, and thereby getting knowledge and being able to bring about change.
Sorry, I didn't introduce myself for the first time. My name is Zotu Ngogba. I'll start with a quote from Martin Heidegger. The thought-provoking thing in our thought-provoking time is that people are still not thinking.
Bro, can you say it again one more time for me?
That a thought-provoking thing in our thought-provoking time is that people are still not thinking. Martin Heidegger. And then this is what he says, and then let me put that aside. When a white man came, they told us we were sinners, so we should accept their Christ. Fine, we did. The story continues. There comes a time that and I'll tell my friends that we are being brainwashed, or we have been brainwashed. If you accept that, then you will want to find a way out. But if you don't accept it, then you will just still be in it. If you don't know, then you know that you don't know, then you want to learn. But if you don't know that you don't even know at all, then you will not be ready to learn or know. Let me put that to our side. Here comes ignorance on part of our military. I had wanted to join the military, but because of certain things and practices they do, I will not join the military. I hope this video gets to them. Most of them are order receiving. They receive orders without thinking. How could you, a soldier or policeman, be asked to go and beat a woman who is planting trees, and then you receive these orders, and then boldly
go and do it?
What level of ignorance are you swimming in? You don't need education to know this. A house training should tell you that, what has that woman done wrong that I should go and beat her? But these people receive orders. Go to the US, the UK, they come down in the name of peacekeeping, but they are actually fighting for resources, fighting for the cooperation.
Yeah.
Those days, military
Raping
used
the
to
people.
be under the government, that is a corporation, but now the military is now an independent corporation, working with the government corporation. How do you expect me to come and join you? Thank you very much.
Real quick, for me, I always think that the answer starts with ourselves, because we want the government to do something magical for us, or we want the AU to do something magical for us. We have a representative from the AU coming Thursday, be here. But I think about here at African Studies, we're called African Studies, and we have a place called Yuri Lodge where you can get only white rice. I hope you understand. I asked for brown rice, they say we can't do that, we can only get white rice. I think that we would do so much better if we had a place and we actually played up our Africanness and we're not afraid of being African. So you go to that place and imagine you can get millet, imagine you can get sorghum, imagine that instead of whatever beer from Holland, or I don't even know where they come from, you could get pito. Imagine if you can get Nsefu, that's palm wine. You understand? So these are the things that I think that, when we look at ourselves, what are our tastes for? What are our desires for? One of my students, Nana Kosuya, she works at YFM at the mall. She said when Pizza Hut came, there was a line all the way around the whole mall almost. You understand? So again, it goes back to the oldest book in the history of the world. If you listen to your belly, you belong to the enemy. That was your ancestors writing this 5,000 years ago, and it's so relevant right now. So think about producing what you consume, consuming what you produce, investing in yourself, that's Africa, and divesting from your enemies. Every time you get a taste for that white rice, that same white rice money is going to support a privatized prison or something that's not helpful to African people. So let's try to change our own tastes and desires. That's what we have control over. We can't change necessarily government in a day. It took her quite some time, but we can do that too. But let's at least start with what we can change right now. And I'll hand it over to Nah.
Okay, yeah. All right. So on that note, we'll bring today's session to an end. Thank you all for coming. We invite you to come back tomorrow and on Thursday and finally on Friday. Tomorrow, we're having the man who stopped the desert, another one with some serious lessons on the environment, as well as solving African problems.
Exactly.
On Thursday, we are having a lecture by the freshest Deputy Chairman of the African Union, Ambassador Kusi Korte, and he is also speaking on something extremely interesting, tracing a cord from transatlantic slave trade
to the AU.
To the AU. And then on Friday, we'll have the end on the how Cuba stopped peak oil.
Right. The power of community, how Cuba survived peak oil.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll be expecting to see you from tomorrow to Friday. Have a nice evening. Once again, thanks for coming.
Please spread the word.
Spread the word. We want to have the room full. Exactly.
In real time so that we get more.
Thanks for coming.
No problem, man.
I know you're my personal project. I invited you and you're here.
Yes, indeed.
Good to know. Hope we'll be seeing you.
Yeah, I'll be around tomorrow.
All right, great.
I wasn't clear on what's happening on Thursday.